YouTube? This your boy Open Mind, and I just wanted to tackle a subject that I think a lot of people overlook or probably don't pay attention to. And I want to connect the dots here. How capitalism leads to mental illness and depression. In our society, our society is a capitalistic society. Everybody is trying to make a buck, trying to sell you something, which is okay. It's not a big deal. I'm selling music, so I guess I could say I have a hand in it, so to speak. But there's a bigger picture here. I'm just one person. Of course, I don't drive this engine, but I want to see how we can connect the capitalistic society that we live in and how it leads to depression and mental illness. And I want to read a few paragraphs from an article to further prove my point here. I'll start off by reading a few paragraphs from the article, and then I'll just give my take. The link will be posted below the video, so you guys can read it for yourselves. Johann Hari's new book, Lost Connections, Uncovering the Real Causes of Depression and the Unexpected Solutions, provide new, compelling evidence to support the argument from We Are All Very Anxious by the Institute for Precarious Consciousness. The argument is that most of us are deeply unhappy. And this unhappiness is a completely rational response to unhappy conditions of our lives that capitalism has produced. Specifically, Hari points out how the routine of work under pressure capitalism is making us miserable. Quote, there is a strong evidence that human beings need to feel their lives are meaningful, that they are doing something with purpose that makes a difference. It's a natural psychological need. But between 2011 and 2012, the polling company Gallup conducted the most detailed study ever carried out of how people feel about the thing we spend most of our waking lives doing, our paid work. They found that 13% of people say they are engaged in their work, and they find it meaningful and look forward to it. Some 63% say they are not engaged, which defined as sleepwalking through their workday, and 24% are actively disengaged. They hate it. Even the United Nations has concluded that we need to move from focusing on chemical imbalances to focus more on power imbalances. So if we want to be happy, we also need to democratize the economy. Democratize the economy. All right, that's how you say that word. So if we want to be happy, we also need to democratize the economy and give people power to determine how they want to spend their time and what kinds of work they would actually enjoy doing. Is everything you know about depression wrong? As the question reads, originally published by The Guardian, January 7, 2018. In the 1970s, a truth was accidentally discovered about depression, one that was quickly swept aside because its implications were too inconvenient and too explosive. American psychiatrists had produced a book that would lay out in detail all the symptoms of different mental illness so they could be identified and treated in the same way across the United States. It was called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. In the latest edition, they laid out 9, for example, decreased interest in pleasure or persistent low mood. For a doctor to conclude you were depressed, you had to show 5 of these symptoms over several weeks. The manual was sent out to doctors across the U.S., and they began to use it to diagnose people. However, after a while, they came back to the authors and pointed out something that was bothering them. If they followed this guide and start giving them medical treatment, if you lose someone, it turns out that those symptoms will come to you automatically. So the doctors wanted to know, are we supposed to start drugging all the bereaved people in America? The authors conferred, and they decided that there would be a special clause added to the list of symptoms of depression. None of this applies, they said. If you have lost somebody you love in the past year, in that situation, all these symptoms are natural and not disorder. It was called the grief exception, and it seemed to resolve the problem. Then, as the years and decades passed, doctors on front lines started to come back with another question. All over the world, they were being encouraged to tell patients that depression is, in fact, just a result of a spontaneous chemical imbalance in your brain. It's produced by low serotonin or natural lack of some other chemical. It's not caused by your life. It's caused by your broken brain. Some of the doctors began to ask how this fitted with the grief exception. If you agree that the symptoms of depression are logical and understandable response to one set of life circumstances, losing a loved one, might they not be an understandable response to other situations? What about if you lose your job? What if you're stuck in a job that you hate for the next 40 years? What about if you're alone and friendless? The grief exception seemed to have blasted a hole in the claim that the causes of depression are sealed away in your skull. It suggested that there are cases out there in the world that they needed to be investigated and solved there. This was a debate that mainstream psychiatry, with some exceptions, did not want to have. So they responded in a simple way, by whittling away the grief exception. With each new edition of the manual, they reduced the period of grief that you were allowed before being labeled mentally ill, down to a few months and then finally to nothing at all. Now, if your baby dies at 10 a.m., your doctor can diagnose you with mental illness at 10:01 a.m. and start drugging you straight away. Now, I'm going to stop here. Excuse me. Just reading a little bit of science and expert opinions on this topic so that I can go into my take on it. I personally believe that this capitalistic society that we live in is one of the direct causes of mental illness and depression. We've been taught, raised, indoctrinated from our young age to our old age now that financial success and accolades and achievements in life means you're this, you're that. And even in the dating pool, and this isn't picking on any gender specific, this is both genders. Men have a set of financial and educational criteria for women, and women have a set of financial and educational requirements, career requirements for men in the dating pool. Because everybody wants to feel as if their partner is bringing something to their table. That is a capitalistic approach even to dating. And if one feels that he or she does not have certain accolades, achievements, financial achievements, what you got in the bank, what your credit score is, all of these things, economically and educationally, you're deemed a loser, so on and so forth. But in the end, what people overlook and fail to realize is we're all human and we're all going to meet the same fate, which is death. We all get sick. Money doesn't prevent sickness. Money doesn't prevent death. Degrees, accolades, achievements, accomplishments, none of these things that you come into in your life that you live will prevent your human body from deteriorating or stop any bodily functions or things that to do with nature. Like, we can't control the weather. We don't control animals and how they breed. If a mosquito wants to bite you, a mosquito is going to bite you if you're rich or poor. So there's nature, which has it operates independent in of itself. Even the human body is a form of nature. And then there's what man has put into place, which is what we call capitalism. Everybody's trying to make a buck. Well, to try to make a buck syndrome is because we have a system of currency that we have put on ourselves as human beings. That system of currency being money, whether it be fiat money, digital money, paper cash, equity, ownership of something. All of these things that have to do with money, which then gives you access to other things. When you get all of these things, the money, the cars, the material things, the big house, you still feel a little bit empty inside, especially if you don't have anyone to share it with. Single rich people are some of the most depressed people. They get on all types of drugs, opioids. They become heavy alcoholics. They crackheads, meth heads. Some of the most cracked out, drugged out substance abusers are people who have lots of money because they can actually support their habit. A broke, poor person may very well be on some type of drug, but they don't really have the money to constantly support their habit. So they're in rehab by default unless they rob and steal for it. But even still, to rob someone, you have to have some type of resources to actually complete your robbery. See, a poor person on the street needs someone or needs money to support their habit. So they inevitably get off of a drug, whatever the drug they're on, because they have no way of paying for the drug. Whereas people who have reached a certain financial status in life have access to all types of drugs and they can afford to support that habit. Single people who have accomplished many things in life become alcoholics, heavy cigarette smokers, heavy drug users, some type of drug to ease the pain of loneliness or the constant fear of losing what you have or what you've accomplished. So you either can't find a mate because you're too busy to find a mate, or you find a mate and you're afraid that this mate is only with you because of your money and your accomplishments. So you don't trust people, and then you only want to date a certain pool of people, but then that certain pool of people is unavailable because they're too busy, and everybody's a capitalist. If you've accomplished a lot of things and you have a lot of things to bring to a table and you meet someone with those same accomplishments, the both of you are only with each other for some type of peace of mind that as long as he or she has something to offer me, they won't take what I've accomplished, and vice versa. Or if I lose everything I've accomplished, I can then lean on this person who's accomplished the same things I have or more, so that I don't feel like I'm a nobody, I'm a loser. That sparks the seed and plants the seed of depression and mental illness that we have in this country. I'm not a psychiatrist myself. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a person who observes. And I've been up and I've been down. I've been in positions where I've had not necessarily millions, but I've been in a very financially prosperous situation where I've had it all, gave it all away. I've lost jobs. I've had jobs. I myself have suffered from the depression and the fear of losing it all. But when you lose it all, it's hard to get it back. And if you get it back, you want to maintain it. So it's a constant cycle and circle of bullshit. And I would like to not blame it all on capitalism, because depression and mental illness can be, the reason for it could be many things. But I think capitalism plays a big part in it, because the capitalistic nature of us all, it turns us all into snobs, arrogant people, elitist mindset people. Everybody is judgmental towards the other person who doesn't have anything tangible economically to offer. And you're even judged based on your financial status. You're judged based off of that. What is your status? How much money you got? What you doing? Blah, blah, blah is the topic of discussion amongst the public, whether it be on social media, in public spaces. Everybody's talking about what other people got. And they play the role like, I don't care what you got. It don't matter what you got, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't impress me. That's a front in of itself, because no one wants to seem like they're after your money. So a lot of people are fronting. The front in of itself is a form of mental illness, because everybody's fronting, because everybody wants to appear as if they have something, have accomplished something, so therefore I'm somebody. We all live, we all die. I encourage people to be more spiritual, be more centered, meditate, pray, get in tune with the Creator, get in tune with your spiritual side, your higher self, and practice that on a daily basis, because no matter what you accomplish in this life, if you're not centered and you don't have no type of relationship with the Creator force, which we'll call God, if that's what you want to call it. I don't really call it God, because I believe that God is nature, and nature operates independent of itself. It doesn't favor you or really care about you in the sense that it's going to do for you and ignore everyone else. My thing about God is that you have a spiritual connection, a sense of grounded and centered, where you're aware of yourself and you're trying to be the best you that you can be. Where that means helping people out and not asking for any type of monetary gain for helping people. There's an opportunity for you to do a good deed where nobody's looking and you don't get any credit for it. You do it because it's the right thing to do. I encourage people to do that and live their lives that way, because there's a sense of fulfillment and a sense of what's the word I want to say? A sense of being and making a difference, even if it's just helping one person, even without looking. Every time I do something nice for a person, or I go out of my way for somebody, whether I know them or not, and I don't really expect or require anything in return, on the inside of me, I feel like I'm doing the Creator's work. Not that the Creator needs me to do anything, because the Creator created me and the Creator can destroy me. It's just a matter of me being a selfless person, putting myself aside and looking out for someone else who probably wouldn't have done it for me. But it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that I'm here, I'm alive, I want to make a difference in others' lives. Make an impact that even if they don't remember my name or my face, they're going to remember my energy, because I was in their space in that moment. I did something for them that they didn't ask me to do, and I didn't ask for monetary gain for it. That's just how I live my life, and that is how I battle with my own mental illnesses and depressions. If I fall into these mental illnesses, these depressions, these slumps where you're feeling down, I try to just not focus on myself in that moment and be in that down slump. And I try to look and see other people, whether it be a homeless person standing under a bridge, whether I'm in line and I see a pregnant woman come into the business and I'll let her cut in front of me. Just any little thing you can do that you're thinking of someone other than yourself. And I believe the universe, the karma, comes back in your favor. Karma is, in my opinion, well, I won't even say opinion. You can read up on this. Karma works in good and bad ways. Karma is a circle. It's a gigantic circle or cycle. And you control the energy of the karma. When you put out bad energy comes back. You put out good energy comes back. It starts from you, it goes out, and then it comes back to you. It's like a boomerang. Karma is just a boomerang. When you release that karmatic boomerang into the universe, what you've charged it with is what's going to come back to you. It's going to go out and retrieve whatever you sent out, whatever type of energy you sent it out with, it's going to come back with that energy. So if you throw a positive boomerang into the universe, positivity is going to come back to you. You throw out a negative boomerang, a negative energy is going to come back to you. It's coming back full circle. And that's karma. That's karmatic energy. So I feel that if we practice this, which is not going to fix all of the problems in the United States or in the world, it's just that the capitalism causes us to send out a lot of negative boomerangs. We send out negative boomerangs because we're trying to get over on people. Capitalistic stuff makes you get over on people. To make a buck, you got to get over on somebody, because if you don't beat out the next business, the person or the consumer is going to go to them and give them their money. So you got to shit on that business, hate on that business, or you gotta, if it's nothing to do with another business, just a customer sitting in front of you, it's like, instead of just telling them the truth, which more than likely they're probably not going to buy your product, you find yourself lying to them and running game on them and feeding them bullshit, just like a car salesman or a real estate agent, just to get their dollar. And that's a one-time payment. It's not residual income until you go out there and sell another house, sell another car, or sell another product. So as we become capitalists, we then become depressed and mentally ill inevitably by default, because when the day is over, all those negative boomerangs that you sent out into the universe come back to you. Even if you make money, even if you actually prosper financially in your capitalistic approach to things, you're gonna experience some negativity. You're gonna pay for all the bad shit you put out. And people say when you die you go to hell. That's the religious belief. I think you live in your hell immediately. You experience your hell as you live. I believe that death is the end of it all, and the peace of mind that you feel after you've lived your life. Life in itself is hell. The animal kingdom is the dog eat dog, only the strong survive situation. It's hell, it's hell, it's hell all over the place. And death is when it's all over and you're in peace, because if you're death, you no longer exist. You're in the spiritual realm, the world of light, whatever you want to call it. You don't have to be a capitalist in death. You're not trying to sell anything to anybody. You don't need money. You don't need food. You don't need water. You don't need anything to feed your deteriorating shell in death, because you're already dead. So as your consciousness moves on to that other side, you're just consciousness. You don't have a physical form. Even if you're aware of yourself in death, you're still consciousness. You don't need any tangible or materialistic things or you don't even have a reason to get over on anybody. You're just floating in bliss. So as we live on this hell, we kind of control, or have a little bit of control over, what we experience. The capitalistic society that we live in can be attributed to the mental health and the depression and the stress that we go through. Everyone who shoots up schools, or let's take, for example, the kids that shooting up schools. Their parents are neglecting them in a way that their parents are trying to provide them the best life that they can, as expensive as it is. And that mom or dad or both parents are neglecting the kid to stay at work, constantly busting their asses all the time. The kid is growing up, the teenager's growing up, not getting the love and care from mom and dad, and the parents are teaching the kid the same thing to perpetuate as they grow up. And these kids experience a depression of neglect from the parent, because the parent is working one job, two jobs, constantly at work. And when they get off work, they don't want to be bothered with the kid because they've been at work all day dealing with work stress. It's all a big cycle. The capitalistic cycle. So I personally believe, with facts to back it up, and the link will be under the video, that capitalism has a hand in the mental illness and the depression that we actually observe in this country. Rich people are more depressed than poor people. Not that I can prove that on paper, but I can see it, because the rich person doesn't want to lose their riches. They don't want to be broke. They fear poor. They fear not being able to access the finer things in life, the best medicine, the best house, the best car. They fear being ridiculed for not having anything. There's a fear there. And fear also is a direct connection to mental illness. Fear of the unknown. Fear of not being in control. Capitalism creates a fear within us that if we're not rich or wealthy or well off, or at least financially able to pay our bills, that fear of having nothing and no one giving a shit about you, which more than likely no one does give a shit about you if you can't give them anything. And another form of capitalism, even if they're not selling you something. People feel like if you're in a position to give me something, I'm going to be your friend. If you can't give me anything or help me out financially, then I have no use for you. Even they're capitalists. There's capitalists in all of us. We all have a form of it, and we only associate with people who can do for us. The average saying is, why would I deal with someone who can't do anything for me? What type of friend are you? If I needed $100 from you and I can't call you, you're not really a good friend. Well, friendship seems like friendship comes with a tether of what can you do for me financially, friend? But is that true friendship? Because what if that friend just can't do it? Or what if they can do it, but they know that you have bad spending habits and they just flat out don't want to give you any money, but they'll let you live with them. They might buy you something. They might introduce you to some people to get yourself into a better position. They just won't necessarily put money in your hand. But you, on the other hand, say they're not a friend because they won't give you any money. See how capitalism turns us all into bad people, which then makes us mentally ill. It all connects. That's how the dots connect. It's your boy Open Mind. I just figured it's a good take on this mental illness thing. Capitalism plays a bigger role than people want to give it credit for. And how do we change the capitalistic nature of this society? Well, we need to change our laws. We need a complete overhaul in the law reform. There needs to be some form of socialism, not 100%, but some form of socialism, that there are just certain things that we should not have to worry about as far as health, drinking water. There are some things that we should not have to pay for as human beings because they are just natural things that we need. Now, there are things that we don't need that we should be required to pay for. I'm all for that. But things like health care, things like water, things like oxygen, things like medication, that should be something that we should not have to pay for. I don't have an issue with having to pay for a house or even having to pay for a car. I don't have an issue with that. I have an issue with having to pay for medication because we're all going to die anyway. But I see you got a disease. I'm going to charge you more than you can afford to pay for this medication. If you don't got it, hey, oh well, guess you're going to die. I got the medicine, you don't. And it makes us it just makes us evil. So this your boy Open Mind. Just wanted to give a educational take on mental illness and depression as it pertains to capitalism. Until the next time, y'all, creator bless, y'all get money. Capitalistic. Deuces.